Okay, guys, so what I want to do is I want to put a quick video together on the AP European History exam, the changes for 2020. So I want to go through some of the information that they've provided as well as the rubric, kind of give you some highlights here, and a quick video to kind of prep you for what's coming. First of all, the test date. We got the test date here. Well, let's get fancy here. Let's use this mouse. The exam day is May 13th, all right? And for us, because we live in the East Coast, it's at 4 p.m. unless you're in some other time zone, which I doubt you are because you're probably going to be home. But anyway, it's at 4 p.m. So May 13th, 4 p.m. is our testing date. Now, that said, what's the timing going to be? Well, it's a 45-minute exam, and then you're going to have 5 minutes to upload it. So you get 45 minutes to answer the question. Is one singular question. See that? One question. And it's going to be worth 100% of the exam, obviously. And the format of that is a DBQ. Yes, DBQ, right? We hoped maybe that it wouldn't be a DBQ because after all, how would you fit a DBQ in 45 minutes? Well, the answer is they figured out a way to do that, all right? So DBQ, document-based questions. So here's how they actually were able to do that. So instead of the normal 7 documents you see in a DBQ, they're actually going to use 5, right? So they're modifying it to fit in that 45-minute time frame. So, and it says one of which will be a non-text-based source, meaning it's an image. So remember our see, think, wonder exercises we do a lot of in class? Remember those see, think, wonder exercises? That's something you're definitely going to want to do when you look at that particular non-text-based source, meaning that picture, right? Whatever that picture is, right? You got a picture of something, right? You got a picture of the sun and, I don't know, something. I'm going to draw some trees. Pretty good, huh? Using just my ThinkPad. Anyway, so a picture, some kind of non-text-based source. So five historical sources, 4 of which will be text-based, 1 will not be. And the same rules pretty much apply. What are they looking for? Can you respond with an historically defensible thesis, right? Again, you're taking an argument, you're taking a side on this. Can you obviously contextualize it, right? Again, that's another part of the rubric. Can you support the argument using at least 4 documents, right? So I always tell you that's bunk. You can use all the documents, so use all 5, right? In the previous case, use all 7, because if you did mess up the interpretation of a document, they're still going to give you points for it. So again, you want to just use all 5 anyway. So ignore that, but you definitely want to support your argument. Now, and we'll see this in a rubric, you use 2 additional pieces of specific historical evidence that are beyond the documents, right? Beyond those found in there. So, but it has to be relevant to your argument and claim. So that's a new thing. We're going to see that in the rubric for 2020. For at least 2 documents, explain how or why the point of view purpose, right? This is your sourcing, right? So we got 2 of these for beyond, and we got 2 of these for sourcing. So all that sourcing work I've had you guys do over the course of the year, that's going to play a great, role in your success here. But you don't have to do it for 3. You only have to do it for 2 of them. So that's helpful. Again, that will help you streamline your process a little bit and maybe fit within that 45-minute window. And obviously, you have to use the evidence to support your argument, and that's pretty much a given. So, and here's a quick blurb on the DBQ itself. The prompt is modified so it can fit in that 45-minute time frame. The coverage will be only units 1 through 7, and as I said, it will be 5 documents instead of 7. I'm going to go through the rubric real quick with you in a second here. That will reduce the number of documents. It's going to factor that into its scoring system. It is awarding 1 point for using 2 documents and an additional point of view for using 4 documents, right? Additional point will be awarded for effectively incorporating a second piece of outside knowledge into the argument, which is that's a new thing, as I mentioned earlier. We saw that up here. And it says students can earn up to 2 points for sourcing, 1 point for each document. Again, that's new because typically they require you to source 3 documents and you get a point for that. So instead, you're going to get a point for each document you source, up to 2, of course. Again, content. We're looking at units 1 through 7. That's up to 1914. All right. So that means that World War I and on, Russian Revolution, all that is not on the exam. So the unit we just did for the last month in Unit 8, kind of finalizing that global conflict, that huge unit of the 20th century, World War I, interwar period, World War II, and now a quick unit on the Cold War. All that is not going to be in the exam. So we're not going to be stressing too much of that after we finish this. Like I mentioned to you guys earlier in the Zoom, the quick Unit 9 Cold War unit, we're going to go into review mode and look at units 1 through 7 and really be looking through that for the remainder of the year. So seniors, you guys will be academically done as of May 1st, but the rest of us will continue to review up until that May 13th exam. We'll have a little bit more of a runway to do that. Our advantage. I obviously invite the seniors to continue reviewing, and they can do that, but that's kind of the goal for our course. We're going to ignore the makeup dates because you don't need them. So that pretty much takes us through the exam. Again, 45 minutes, one DBQ question, 5 documents, 4 of which would be text-based. 1 would be a pretty picture of some kind or some kind of non-text-based image or source, rather. I don't necessarily say it's an image. You want to think, see, think, wonder when you're looking at that. But look at the rubric because it's been modified. Thesis and claim is the same. All right, that's going to be the same. They want to see that you have a prompt, that you are not simply restating the prompt, but that you respond to the prompt. Right? It's arguable. Right? You again think of that wonderful template I told you guys to use when writing a thesis or constructing one. Although X, A, B, and C. Although, right? Although, I'm trying to write this out on my trackpad here. Although X, there we go. It's the word although, yes. And X, that's your counter argument. You want 3 categories, A, B, and C. Those are your 3 categories you can defend with. Now, because you only got 5 documents to work with, you might not have three categories. You might only have 2. It doesn't really matter. The idea is that you want to have at least 2 anyway to kind of formulate a solid argument, right? So again, think of that thesis statement that's going to help drive your analysis here. Remember, you want to analyze, and that means you need to use that magical word because. So you construct that thesis really well, your essay is going to write itself. Context, set it up. Give us the broad historical context, right? Talk about what's going on politically, socially, economically, right? Whatever is relevant to that particular prompt, you're going to do that. So really, this is your first paragraph, right? I would say start with this. This would be step 1. And then step 2 would be to write in your thesis statement after that. So that's the 2 tasks you really have. If you have a first paragraph that does those 2 things, you got 2 points right there. Boom, out of a total of 10. All right. Then we can move on to the rest of the test. So let's see. Well, this is going to play around a little bit. Let me delete that so I can move around. So this is where it gets a little bit different for this year. The evidence is 5 points. They're going to give you a point for using the content of at least 2 documents. Remember, you only have 5, right? You only have 5 documents to work with. 5 docs. All right. So because you only have 5 documents to work with, if you use at least 2 of them, you get a point. If you support an argument in response to the prompt using 2 documents, right, then you're going to get another point. To earn 2 points, the response must accurately describe rather than simply quote the content of at least 2 documents. In addition, response must use the content of the documents to support. So again, anytime you use evidence, that's to drive your analysis. Because, right? Remember that magic word, because. You're citing this document because it's helping to support your idea here. So yeah, and then they're going on to say for 2020 only, this intermediate point, right? This second point will be awarded for students who can support an argument with fewer documents than in a typical exam year. Because we only have 5 documents as opposed to 7, right? If you've got 4, you're good to go. And well, if you got 2 documents rather. Now the third point, right, for this use of evidence is going to be you respond to the prompt using at least 4 documents. But like I said, you're going to use all 5, right? You're not going to just do 4 or play around with 2 or whatever. You're going to use all 5 in your analysis because that's going to not only give you a chance to get all those points, but if you misinterpret 1, you're still going to get all 3 points. So if you write a first paragraph with context and thesis, and you use all the documents to support it, you've got 5 points out of 10. You're on your way, All right, you're on your way to doing pretty well on this particular exam. All right. Next is the evidence beyond the documents. Usually they give you 1 point for kind of making up an additional piece of evidence, right? Something that is obviously believable and appropriate and relevant, right? It's relevant to the argument, right? You're not just pulling it out thin air. You're like, it depends on the question, but it's got to fit your analysis, right? The response must describe the evidence. It must use more than a phrase or reference. The additional piece of evidence must be different from the evidence, right? It's got to be different type, a different form of evidence that was used during the point for contextualization. So if you do that, that's a point. If you do it a second time, that's another point. So for 2020 only, this point will be awarded for students who use a second piece of outside evidence. In other words, they're trying to figure out a way to squeeze points in and also minimize the amount of work you do to fit within that 45-minute time frame. So the easiest thing for them would be if you come up with one document and one piece of evidence outside beyond the documents, you can just think of a second one. So if you do that, boom, you've got it. All right. And now you're up to 6, 7 out of 10, which is probably putting you in 5 category, depending on if they stick to the same kind of, scoring system, which is usually 65% of the total points is going to put you in 5 category. However, that's all theoretical right now, so don't quote me on any of that. So lastly, the last thing we want to look at were the changes to the rubric. So again, the changes here are using 2 documents, and you want to use at least 4. I'm telling you use all 5, and you'll take care of all the evidence part of that. If you come up with a second piece of evidence beyond the documents, you're getting an extra point for that. And then lastly, let's look at the final bit here. Analysis and reasoning, basically looking at the qualitative part of your argument, right? And that's, again, where your because becomes really strong. So normally for one document explains how or why the document's point of view, purpose, historical situation, or our audience is about. Now, this is your sourcing question, right? Now, we've been doing this all year long, right? What's happening, right? So this is your sourcing part of the DBQ. Can you demonstrate that you can source stuff? Typically, it's you have to source at least 3 documents to get a point. However, what they're doing is they're going to give you 1 point for sourcing one document. Then they're going to give you a second point for sourcing a second document. So whereas you normally get 1 point for 3, this year you're getting a point for each document that you source. So source 2 of them, 2 docs, give me that what's happening, right? Tell me what's happening, right? I'm going to just abbreviate. And for 2 documents, and you're good to go, right? Now, the last bit here is you demonstrate a complex understanding of the historical development. That is the focus of the prompt using evidence to corroborate, blah, blah. In other words, did you make your argument, in a sophisticated way, right? This is not anything unusual. This is what's always in the rubric. So again, that's really kind of your qualitative part of that. That's the reasoning aspect of it. That's there. You can see a description of that. There's a link I'll be sharing with you for this rubric. It's actually in our meeting agenda notes from the other day when we met at 8:30. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. And then I'll put a link up in our review packet that's going to be online as well. So that should run you through the exam and the changes. 45 minutes to answer 1 DBQ, 5 documents only as opposed to 7, and some changes to the rubric, most notably that you're going to get a point for each evidence beyond the documents you suggest, and you're going to get a point for each document you source, right? And you don't have to use, because there's only 5 documents, focus on using all 5 documents, and you'll be good to go. And that should pretty much take you through a very strong result on your AP exam for this particular year. All right, that's all I got for now. If you have any questions, you know how to find me. Otherwise, I'll see you guys online and hopefully in real life real soon.